Good evening. My name is Marilyn Perkins, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Benton and Franklin Counties, I would like to welcome you to tonight's forum featuring candidates for Franklin County officials. The League is a nonpartisan organization that does not support or oppose any candidate. In presenting these forums, it is our goal to provide the opportunity for voters to become better informed about the people who are running for public office and the issues that are important. If you are interested in receiving our digital newsletter or becoming a member of League possibly, please sign in at the table at the back of the room. Wave, Janet. She'd be glad to talk to you. This event is being live streamed on social media, specifically on the City of Pasco's Facebook page, and is being recorded to be replayed on Pasco City Television Channel 191. It is also available for viewing on YouTube. So if you know people and that should have been or would have liked to have been here, tell them they can still watch it at their leisure. This event is being, I already said that. With this in mind, it is time, I want to express our thanks to John Funfar. He is out in their truck, communications program manager for the City of Pasco. Bob Kreider, a local businessman who is right over here, who has been very willing to help with this. Mike Charbonneau, who is with the City of Richland, and he and John help each other out. The cable communications coordinator for the City of Richland. And their assistants over the past years have really made these forums possible. And so if you ever see the city manager or anybody, tell them how much you appreciate the work that they do. For many years, they have made these forums possible. We also want to thank the Pasco Police Department for making this building available to us. Tonight, we will be featuring the candidates who are seeking the position of commissioner, and they're already up here, the position of auditor, clerk, well, coroner, I should say. In the case of the Franklin County clerk, only one candidate was available tonight. And when that happens, we cannot do the question and answer portion. But the candidate who isn't here can send a statement and be read by a representative, which Mr. Killian has done. And his opponent will give her own statement. But unfortunately, they can't answer questions from the audience at that time. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to our moderator, who is Carly Tinsley from KNDU. She is a reporter and weekend anchor, and this is her very first time moderating for us, so I would like to give her a very warm welcome.
Well, good evening. Thank you guys so much for coming out here tonight. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting on an event like this. It is so important for all of us to learn a little bit more about all of our candidates. So here is how tonight will go. Each candidate may make a 2-minute opening statement. We're then going to move on to a question and answer period with a 1.5-minute time limit on responses. Both candidates in a particular race will answer the same questions, alternating who goes first. The League has prepared questions, but we are also taking written questions. You were given an index card when you walked in. If you need one, please raise your hand and we'll give one to you. Be sure to mark which race your question is for. Please ask questions that all candidates would be able to answer and nothing of a personal nature. Hold up your card and someone will come to collect it. Candidates, I would like to point out our timers to you. They will hold up a sign when you have 15 seconds left to speak and then a stop sign. You do not need to stop mid-sentence, but please try to wrap up your thoughts at that time. As you can see, we are beginning with the candidates who are running for Franklin County Commissioner in District 3. They are Zara Roach and Clint Didier. The candidates will be addressed by the order in which they filed to run for office. We will begin with Ms. Roach. Your opening statement, please.
Thank you, and thank you to the League for hosting this tonight. My name is Zara Roach, and I've had the pleasure and privilege for 7 years of serving on the City of Pasco Planning Commission. I'd like to bring my experience and my knowledge to the role of Franklin County because it is the fastest growing county in Washington State. As a former educator in Pasco School District, I taught at Pasco High School and New Horizons High School. That is where I help my students navigate the services that the county provides, such as crisis response, homeless shelters, the transit, law enforcement. As a mother, I am very familiar with the services and the facilities our county offers. The median age here is 28 to 34 years old. These are young families who have children that are using the roads, the buses, the parks, the libraries, the school districts. They are first-time homeowners who pay property taxes that go to these facilities. Like myself, they have no voice on this board of commissioners. I want to be their voice on that board. As a lifelong resident, I am fully invested and engaged in my home. I'm raising my family here, and I serve the community. I've had 7 years of experience and 7 years of serving the residents here in this city, being their representative to city government. I ask you to please vote for me, Zara Roach, for Franklin County Commissioner.
All right, thank you. Mr. Didier, your opening statement.
Well, thank you for attending tonight, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on. Want to talk a little bit about my history. Born and raised here, Franklin County. Went to CBC College where I got my AA, and then I went to Portland State University where I got my BA. Then I got to play in the NFL for a few years, came back and farmed, helped coach Connell High School to 2 state championships, served on the FSA State Committee, which is a presidential appointed job, Farm Service Agency, which is the biggest bill signed by Congress every session. I'm running because Franklin County, quite honestly, needs leadership, strong leadership. We've had a lot of things transpire in the last few years I've been attending meetings, I've been objecting to some of the things that have transpired, the 70+ executive sessions on the land transaction out of track, the road closure of Glade Road on that winter that we had that washed a little bit of Glade Road out across the fog line on one side of the road where I showed an ironwood that washed clear across the road. They closed Glade Road but put no Jersey barriers up on Ironwood. It was a complete abuse of power, and it needs to be stopped. As a Franklin County resident and a taxpayer, I want to make sure our roads out there in North Franklin County are in great shape for all the commerce that takes place. We have 2 roads out there right now, Langford and Sheffield, that need attention. They are hazardous to everybody traveling, especially the school buses. And yet we have a road to nowhere going in out to the Juniper Dunes, which is going to create a lot of stress for our sheriff with the drag racing and the drug use that will be used out there. I'm Clint Didier, and I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your statements. We are now going to move on to the question and answer portion. Again, each of you has 1.5 minutes to answer. Ms. Roach, we will begin with you following the same order in which you filed. Your question is, Franklin County is one of the fastest growing counties in the state. Does the county have plans and other resources needed to meet these challenges, or does more need to be done to prepare for expected growth?
Franklin County, yes, is the fastest growing county in the state. And the issue that we have as a county is that we're not an affluent county. There are only a few things, according to Washington State Constitution, that a municipality can do to raise money. One is property taxes, one is utility tax, and the other is commercial tax. And so what we need to do as a county is to build up our commercial tax base. That's where we can draw revenue to become a more affluent county. And if we have that, then we have more monies for infrastructure, for roads, for sidewalks, for street lighting, for sewers, all of the above. I think that I have the experience, 7 years of planning commission. This is my jam. Growth Management Act, shoreline management, critical areas. And so I want to bring that knowledge, I want to bring that experience and use it within the Franklin County Commissioners Board.
Thank you. Mr. Didier.
Yes, we are the fastest growing county. And why? Well, because this is a great place to live. Lived here my whole life. But we also get $2.2 billion every year from the federal government for the Hanford Reservation. Now, President Trump said he's going to cut that. What he's going to cut, I don't know. Well, how we're going to come out on this, I don't know. But all I know is, like farming, the growth of any area cycles. So as we're talking about moving the city limits out to self-landing, I say, wait a minute, let's don't get that cart in front of the horse. We have a lot of land right down here in the Tri-Cities that is still being farmed, that people have sat on and they're waiting and possibly for more money to sell. If we move that out to self-landing, we're gonna ruin those people's ability to earn the most off of their land when they sell to subdivide. We are growing. We have tax dollars that have been wasted. The embezzlement by Houston, over $3 million. We've got more embezzlement going on. There's some in the clerk's office of $11,000. There's a lot of misuse of our funds. And that's why we need leadership in the courthouse so that we get everybody together as a team.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take a question that we had from the audience. Mr. Didier, we're going to begin with you. If the moratorium against cannabis sales were lifted, what do you think would be the best use of taxes?
Well, I think the people of Franklin County have spoken, and 60% of them voted against the legalization of marijuana. Now, I'll be honest with you, I used the cream ointment for my shoulders because I have severe arthritis in this shoulder. I have used the drops to help get me to sleep because of the pain, but this isn't cannabis. This is the stuff that's derived from, it is derived from cannabis. It's not marijuana, it's derived from cannabis. The taxes that'll be generated should be used for the basic needs of the county. Let's realize one thing. I am a conservative Republican. I believe in limited government. And right now our county's expanding. We have created 2 new funds, the Veterans Fund and the Homeless Fund. The funds are derived against property owners. That's why our property taxes are going out of sight. In 2008, my wife and I paid $19,500 for the land that we're buying in Franklin County. In 2017, we paid $55,000. That's almost tripled. This is unsustainable. They're going to tax us out of existence. We'll have to sell our farms. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Roach?
Can you please repeat that question?
Yes. There we go. If the moratorium against cannabis sales were lifted, what do you think the best use of taxes would be?
Frankly, I don't think the moratorium is going to be lifted anytime soon because in 2014, the community turned out so strongly against it. I've been a proponent for putting out a referendum to see if the current residents are in favor of the moratorium. However, from a financial aspect of it, the marijuana is controlled now by the Washington State Liquor Board control as well as marijuana. And so I did some research, and Walla Walla County, which retails marijuana, last year did about 2.6 million in sales. What they returned to the county after state excise tax was $76,000. So $76,000 is not very much, and that may be used up for administrative fees or policing it. And so for me, it doesn't pencil out from a financial aspect unless we can get more of those dollars to stay here locally and let the residents speak for themselves. So 60% are against it, so I wouldn't push that.
Okay, we're going to move on. Ms. Roach, you will answer this one first. Franklin County also has some prime agricultural land, some of which is being lost to development. Should and can be more be done to protect farmland from development? Are there things that can be done to help lessen potential problems when urban growth gets close to farms that have been around for decades?
Can you repeat the first part of that question? Private agricultural land, and then what was that?
Some of which is being lost to development. Should and can more be done to protect farmland from development?
So there are designations within the city and within the county that are designated prime farm soil, prime farming land, and it cannot be developed. That's not the way that Development or Growth Management Act happens. So what the city has done from a city planning commission, we have had opportunities to meet with and created opportunities to meet with people who live around the urban growth boundary, who are farmers in that area and have been for a long time. I was there, city staff, city planning staff, and we asked those farmers who are interested in developing their property and who are not interested and want to pass that down to their next generation. And so it was an informal meeting in which we got the suggestions and the consensus from the people who live in that area as to what they would like to do with their land and their property in the future. There's nothing that city or county can do if something is designated critical land or prime farm soil land.
Mr. Didier.
Well, as a farmer, I know that there is a law passed that we can only sell off our land in 20-acre parcels. And then whoever buys that can subdivide it down to 5. So they've really hurt the farmer if he decides that he wants to subdivide his farm. We can't do that. We can only sell it off in 20s. I do not want to see the city encroach on the farmland, because what you have then is you have people that will start complaining about the airplanes in the air, the smell of manure, the smell of spud cellars when they unload them if they have some rotten potatoes in there. To me, that's all the smell of money. That's how we make a living. And I gotta tell you, it's great that I'm raising, my wife and I have raised our children, and now our children are raising our grandchildren. And our grandson called me the other day and said, hey, he called me on his mother's phone, and I answered it, and I said, hello, and it was Crew, and he says, Grandpa, they're digging the potatoes, because we've been waiting for a month for these potatoes to be dug. And I said, they are? And he goes, yeah, now you can work the field and get the Timothy planted. And I said, Yahoo! And then I heard his mom say, what did he say? And I heard him go, Yahoo! It was cute. But that's the next generation that I want to make sure that they have their chance at farming.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to another question from the audience. Mr. Didier, we will begin with you. Do you support Initiative 940, De-escalate Washington? Why or why not?
940 to
Training for police to de-escalate during violent encounters.
Well, I would think that I would have to talk to my sheriff, and I don't think I can support that, because I'm looking at him and he's shaking his head no. But there are so many initiatives on the ballot right now that it is incredible. The food tax one is the one that bothers me the most, because everybody that's hard pressed for money will be paying more for groceries. We got to pay attention to these initiatives, people, and that's obviously one. I've already looked at my sheriff, and he says no, and I'm siding with him.
Thank you. Ms. Roach?
So Initiative 940 it concerns law enforcement and de-escalation training. And I think that law enforcement being at the front line of public safety and encounter violent people would really benefit from this. Today we had Pasco Police Department share that they hired a gentleman who has an MSW, and he is trained in de-escalation. So we already see a movement towards law enforcement adopting training for de-escalation. This also, the initiative supports training in how to deal with people who have a mental health condition, which we see in our jails. There is a dedicated pod, medical pod, to separate those who have a mental health condition. And so I think this makes sense to pass.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on. Ms. Roach, you will answer this one first. If the Columbia River shoreline is returned to local control, as many in our area are proposing, what role do you think Franklin County Commissioners should play, if any? And what do you see as the advantages or disadvantages of such a return?
So I want to give some kudos and commend the Tri-City Regional Chamber, the local chambers of commerce who have really pushed this issue into the forefront recently. We have had some conversations about it as a community. They have done a great job at bringing together community stakeholders to discuss why we're pursuing this. And absolutely, from a development, from a growth, from ecotourism, I can totally see this being a wonderful thing for the Tri-Cities as a region. Having a boardwalk with commercial and as well as housing along those areas, open spaces that already exist. But knowing what I know about infrastructure, I know this also costs money. Currently, these lands are owned by the Army Corps of Engineers, and so they pay for the maintenance. I would be interested in knowing what that would financially do to our local governments if we were to acquire these lands, and whether we would be able to afford the maintenance on them. The other piece of this is risk of flooding. There's been talk about removing the dikes, and that could be really problematic for these future proposals of commercial that wants to go up around the area. And finally, we have tribes who have a say in this matter, so it may not go any further than discussing it.
Thank you. Mr. Didier.
Well, on the radio, I stated the fact that I'm in favor of local control, and I applaud them for trying to get it back to local control, but it should go back to the people that owned it when they were compensated for the taking. Those people that the land was taken from should have the ability to buy it first back for the compensation. And the breaching of the dams will not happen under President Trump. I'll guarantee you that. He will not allow those dams to be breached. But if we have another president that is along the line of the environmental movement, and the fact that the salmon are being decimated, if they are being decimated, not by the dams, but by the Caspian terns, the seals and sea lions, the fishing nets across the river, the foreign fisheries that come in our water. If you want to learn about what's truly happening to the salmon runs, read James Buchal's book, The Great Salmon Hoax. It's all in there documented. Great book to read about what's transpired. And he wrote it back in the 90s. But this land should be returned to the original property owners so that taxation money can be collected. After all, if it isn't in a private property hands, who's paying the taxes? Nobody.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to go ahead and go to another question from the audience. Mr. Didier, we will begin with you. What are your top behavioral health priorities for Franklin County?
Top behavioral?
Yes, that is what the question asks.
As far as in the courthouse or the whole county? Because there's a,
Someone want to raise their hand who this was?
well, go ahead.
Yes, I should have explained better. Behavioral health covers mental illness, mental wellness, well-being of folks.
I got you. So this is mental health issue.
Yeah.
And let's clear the stage here and figure out, why do we have this explosion of mental health? We've always had mental health problems, but today we have an explosion of it, don't we? And what's to attribute to that? Drug addiction. Now, I'm all for a wall down on the border, because the Tri-City Herald just wrote an article about the Tri-Cities is one of the main hubs that all this drug trafficking is happening. So I say, let's build the wall, but let's also put some heavy equipment down there, because we seen El Chapo can tunnel faster than anybody I've ever seen before. So the tunnels are there, and they can tunnel, but we got to stop the drug traffic. And the other thing is, we got to give the kids, the kids that are learning at that stage from 10 to 20, they're learning a work ethic if they so get the opportunity. We have got to reinstill teaching our kids a work ethic so they know how to work, and they can work and earn and have a purpose in life. Right now, we have so many kids, they don't know what a purpose is. They're on video games until 4 a.m. talking to a mother the other day, and I said, you need to get that kid working. Get him out and get him a purpose in life. Let him earn some money and figure out what the world's all about.
Thank you. Ms. Roach?
So when it comes to mental and behavioral health, I'd like to say that this is not a fad. It's not something popular that people choose to have or want to have. It is like being born with autism or Down syndrome. You don't get to choose the hand you're dealt. This is something that is decided by God. And we just recently, a couple days ago, had in the Tri-City Herald a front page article about youth suicide. This is a shining star athlete, great personality, comes from a loving home, supportive family, has a diagnosis, and trying to figure out what it means to have a diagnosis of depression or PTSD or bipolar or schizophrenia. And so it's not something to take lightly. That youth was not somebody who was using and abusing drugs. And so it can't all be pushed off onto substance abuse. Yes, substance abuse can have a hand in it and play a part in it when someone is undiagnosed. Anyhow, I just got the sign, but as a Franklin County Commissioner, we have a say in the services that are provided. We have a say in contracting with the different agencies here who provide service to people who need this as a health care issue. And I plan on doing that.
Thank you. All right, this will be our final question. Ms. Roach, we will begin with you. About 2/3 of the population of Franklin County lives in Pasco. What would you tell city residents if they asked you, what does county government do for us?
County government does a lot, and this is part of what I've done as my campaign. It's what's informed my campaign. When I decided I was running for county commissioner, I knew that being a planning commissioner for the city, we are an intermediary group. We're the intermediary group between city staff and government and the people. And so it's my job to listen to people, and they give me their input on applications and permits that come before the city. And I really appreciate it. Some of the most vital information comes from residents. And so as I set off in this campaign, I knew that I needed to be one-on-one with people at their doorstep. This is not my forte. This part of the campaign, I don't like as much as going to someone's door and knocking on it. We've knocked on, my volunteers and I, approximately 5,000 doors. And I'm really proud of that. And I've gotten to know a lot of different people in this community, what they do, what they think, and that's what my platform is based off of. And so I've actually forgotten where I was going with that answer. What was the question again? Getting carried away by the Spirit here.
Thank you. Would you like to? What does the county government do for us?
So the county government, the services, we have law enforcement, we have mental health and behavioral health through Lord's counseling, we have juvenile justice, we have the roads are planned and budgeted by county commissioners. It's a lot is planned by them. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Didier.
Well, according to the Municipality Research and Services Center, the county government's responsible for roads, bridges, and maintenance of those roads, law enforcement through the sheriff department, and a few other items. but we've taken on a lot more tasks than we used to have. Mental health was never part of the county government. The county government was created on how far a guy could ride a horse to the county courthouse and then back home before it was dark. So that's the way the counties were formed. I think we need to get back to a limited county government and quit trying to be the savior. We got a state that's trying to be the savior of everything here, and all it's doing is taking money from the hardworking taxpayers and then dispersing it. And the hardworking taxpayers and the ones I'm talking about are the ones that are out there laboring in the fields right now, driving the trucks and working hard, and they're just getting enough money to get by. And then they're paying the sales tax or paying all these taxes. This isn't fair. We need everybody participating in paying for the county government. So I would like to see less taxation on the property owners, because the property owners can't withstand much more with the increase in power and water and all the other necessities to farm. We can't afford any more higher property taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, it is now time for closing statements. Ms. Roach, please share your closing statement.
This is my first run for any elected office. I'm not a politician. Hopefully I can have conveyed to you today that I care deeply about what the residents think and what the residents are concerned about. As I said before, my volunteers and I have knocked on close to 5,000 doors in Franklin County. That includes Pasco, Colotis, Mesa, Altopia, Connell. I want to use my knowledge of public service and my experience to promote what I like to call smart growth. And what I mean by that is adopting a balanced approach. We have a huge population growth that's happening. We need to balance out our facilities as well. We need to promote more commercial growth to happen here in our county. One way to do that is also, as we discussed earlier, is budgeting. Budgeting is important for law enforcement, for mental health services, as well as others. I want to also bring transparency to county government. This has been one of my platform issues. We have county commissioners that are meeting at Tuesday at 9 a.m. There is something we can put as a mitigating factor. We have a county website. We have audio equipment, digital equipment. Let's put in a video camera so that people, when they get home on Tuesday night, if there's an item that concerns them, they can get on their computer and access it. This is not a huge cost for the county, and it provides transparency, which is the most important thing, and it provides access for residents to know what's happening, how their county government is working for them. Thank you. I humbly ask you to vote for me, Zara Roach. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Didier, your closing statement.
For 2 years, I've been attending county commissioner meetings, not every week, and I can't because I'm a farmer. And I asked the commissioners, and Mr. Cook's sitting right there, and I asked him, I went to 3 meetings and specifically asked that they please put the recording out on the website of Franklin County so that in my tractor, I could listen to the meeting to see what transpired. The 3rd meeting that I requested this, I finally got it, but it was sent to me directly and not put out for the rest of the public. This is one of the things that I want out there. We need accountability in our county government with transparency and strong leadership so that all the departments will come together and work in unison. As a football player, I learned from Joe Gibbs that teamwork makes the dream work. And when you got a team that works on all 8 cylinders, it can't be stopped. If we get our county government working like it should, efficiently, we can maybe lower some taxes. And we can help the people that are out there working hard to keep more money in their pocket. Because this is my main goal. I want people to come to Franklin County because of opportunity, not because of handouts. I want them to come here to want to work because we are a robust county that creates jobs. I'm Clint Didier. I'm running for Franklin County Commissioner, and I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, and let's all thank the candidates for participating in tonight's forum. Zara Roach, Clint Didier, running for Franklin County Commissioner in District 3. We'll now take a short break while candidates for Franklin County Auditor come up. Please stay seated so we can keep moving forward. Thank you. Okay, we are now going to turn to the race for Franklin County Auditor. Let me introduce Matt Beaton and Diana Izagiri. Again, these candidates will be addressed by the order in which they filed for office. So we are going to begin with Mr. Beaton. Your opening statement, please.
All right, thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and all of you for being here tonight. I'm Matt Beaton, and I've been your elected county auditor for the past 8 years. My professional life started for me when I was 19 years old. I earned my real estate license while attending the University of Washington, where I earned a degree in business administration. During that time, at 19, myself and a partner started investing in rental homes. Following college, I spent 17 years up to 2011 working in the real estate valuation field, 7 in corporate banking, and 10 running my own valuation business that covered the 4 county areas surrounding Tri-Cities. During that time, I valued over $1 billion in assets on behalf of banks, lenders, private parties, lawyers, and insurance companies. I'm married to Lisa for the past 20 years. We make our home in Pasco. We have 4 children, a first-year Navy sailor studying to be a nuclear operator, 2 Chiawana High School students, and a 4-year-old at St. Joseph's Montessori. I have resided in Pasco since 1995. I serve on the Central Washington Catholic Foundation Board as Vice President, a member of Pasco Kiwanis, and a member of the Washington Coalition for Open Government, as well as I've served on the Lord's Board. My efforts as county auditor have earned me the endorsement of the Republican Party, the Tri-City Herald. I learned last night the County Courthouse Union, and most importantly, I've earned the respect and endorsement of Washington State Secretary of State Kim Wyman and of Washington State Treasurer Dwayne Davidson. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Izagiri.
Thank you. Thank you to the League for this forum. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I thank everyone in attendance and watching online. My name is Diana Izagiri. My 25 years experience in the auditor's office, that's a long time, including the last 7 working with Matt Beaton as auditor, gives me a unique perspective regarding what is going on in the courthouse. There's been a lot of talk about the role of the auditor. One of the accounting functions of the auditor is to ensure that there are funds available as budgeted by the county commissioners when the county offices submit vouchers for payment. The auditor must also have internal controls, such as verifying that the vendors on their list have the appropriate IRS documentation, such as W-9s. Auditing other county officials is not, and their offices, is not a mandated function of the county auditor. That is the role of the state auditor's office. My leadership skills give me the ability to mend any broken relationships with the other county officials for effective government. Service to you is my priority. One of my goals is to expand the licensing department hours back to 8:30 to 5, because that would directly serve you, and I have heard from many people out as I'm walking about that that is important, that that would be helpful. And I will expand our voter education outreach program as another priority, because Franklin County has the lowest voter turnout in the state, especially in precincts with high minority percentages. We can educate on the deadline to return ballots to lessen the number of ballots that are returned too late, and hear firsthand how valued the prepaid postage is for our voters. As a Pasco native, I have lived and worked in Franklin County most of my life. I have 3 children, a 25-year-old daughter in San Francisco, and 22-year-old twin sons serving in the Navy. One thing that happened since I've been out of the office is that one of my sons is deployed. He's in Bahrain, and he voted in the primary, and his vote didn't count. So I think we need to look into that.
All right, thank you. All right, we are going to move on to the question and answer period. Again, you have 1.5 minutes to answer. We're going to begin with Mr. Beaton, and this is going to be a combination of a Viewer question and one of ours. Voter turnout continues to be low throughout the county. Do you have any theories why this is so, and are there any specifics to Franklin County voters?
Sure. I do want to note Franklin County elections in the past year was invited by the EAC. It's the United States Elections Assistance Commission. And they chose us. I was quite surprised, and it was distinguished to be selected out of 3,000 counties to participate in a language summit in Washington, D.C. And what I think that tells you, along with the voter outreach award we received in 2013, is that we are working hard. We have fantastic staff. We've installed a new tabulating system. And I think to directly answer the question regarding our voter turnout numbers is, I've been working on this and following this for eight years. And what you'll find is there is a challenge in the bilingual counties, Adams, Yakima, and Franklin County. It is a struggle, as I explained to a group that Mr. Radish, my fifth grade teacher, taught me about the denominator and the numerator. As you drive up the denominator and they don't vote, your turnout number is going to be lower. We work very hard at that, and I think that the being invited back and incidentally at their expense to participate in that summit, they were impressed with the things that we've achieved, essentially, especially in the last year, the things we've been allowed to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Izagiri.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Yeah, sure. You
Thank
touched on
you.
this a little bit.
I did.
But voter turnout continues to be low throughout the county. Do you have any theories why this is so, and are there any specifics to Franklin County voters?
Well, I've been in that office for a really long time, and actually I helped write the HAVA grant that helped us get that bilingual coordinator position and the program in place. And what I know is that it needs to be developed. It needs to be revamped. I think it needs to go out to the public. It needs to go out into the community. I know that I was walking my precincts, in some of the minority precincts, and a lot of the voters, they were registered to vote, but they just weren't sure how to use their ballot packet, who to contact, what were the timelines. I had one gal who said, she couldn't vote because she had felonies, and it turned out, she's not even on probation, and she has done her time, so she can vote. So it's just, I think, a matter of education that maybe we're just not getting out there enough. I'm sorry, I'm begging on that. So there's a lot more that needs to be done, and I wondered about that invitation to DC because I didn't know if that was because we were supposed to brainstorm on solutions to that, or if it was because we were doing so great, because technically we're not.
Thank you. All right, question number 2, we will begin again with you, Ms. Izagiri. How safe from hacking do you think the election process is in Franklin County, including registration records?
Well, I can tell you that that's been a hot topic. In Franklin County, they did get a new voting system, a new tabulation system, but I was present. I was there for the RFP, and I actually helped select the vendor. So I do know that it's Dominion. I do know that they are secure. I do know that it's not connected to the internet at all, so that it's safe in that way. I think we're out in the nation where it was a little bit more tricky, where they could at least cause some disruption, was with the voter lists, where maybe somebody could get into the file and change some names, or just cause a little bit of chaos that way. But we're lucky to be in Washington State, where we've got Microsoft, and I know that our Secretary of State has worked diligently with all of those national security agencies to make sure that our information is safe. And so I'm very confident.
Thank you. Mr. Beaton?
Again, repeat the question.
Yeah. How safe from hacking do you think the election process is in Franklin County, including registration records?
Okay, so in Franklin County, as far as hacking goes, it's important for the public to know that our tabulation system is on a closed-loop system. It's not accessible to the internet. What happens is, in our new system as well as our old system, the tabulation is done. It is then taken from there and over, and it's uploaded onto the internet system directly to the state system. So from a tabulation standpoint, I'm very satisfied with security. When I came into office, we installed, installed cameras and put in additional doors and really beefed up the security of the elections department as far as just intrusion into the building. So from a cyber standpoint, it is a huge priority. As we were aware nationally of this quote, Russian hacking, there was attempts made at several states to get into the registration system. That registration system they're moving to a new standard in a large rollout from the Secretary of State's level. They do have a task force in place that we in Franklin County are actively participating in, and there is National Homeland Security involvement with trying to secure and find ways and identify access points. And because each county puts in the registrations, they are concerned about the practices at every county. So as they try to pull all 39 counties together, they're trying to find uniform practices and secure that part of the process.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to go ahead and do another question from the audience. Mr. Beaton, we are going to begin with you once more. How do you feel about candidates leaving or retiring prior to the end of their term?
I guess I would say that's a case-by-case basis. It depends on why a person would leave, an elected office. So I do believe that's interesting. I guess I'm trying to think of a circumstance in which I was maybe outraged that somebody did that, or maybe I was elated that they did that. So I guess, my response to that would be, these are professional positions. There is a process in place when either people leave by choice or maybe they, are deceased. So it really is a case-by-case basis, and it would depend on the circumstances and the conditions under which they left.
Thank you. Ms. Izagiri.
That has happened many times in my career, and there are many different reasons why that does happen. But there's always a process for it. We kick right into gear into making sure that we can get the right process in place for both the outgoing elected official and the appointee, because there is a process for that. It has to do with political party, and the recommendations have to come from the party, and all of those nominations, and then they're voting. That's when it's really important to be a precinct committee officer, because you get to vote on those. It's probably the most exciting time, I think. So I don't have a feeling either way. I just feel like it's good when we get a heads up and we can prepare for it.
Thank you. All right, we are going to begin with question 4, and you will be going first. The election department usually oversees 3 elections a year. What overall grade would you give them, including such things as accuracy, efficiency, and transparency?
Do I have a scale?
Nope, that's
Nope,
just
just
it.
like an APC. And we're talking about Franklin County elections, right? Oh, not state elections, statewide? Okay. I would give us an A, and that's because I taught them all they know. No, definitely Franklin County, the processes that we have in place, the state Secretary of State comes through and they review our processes. They review everything from candidate filing to the forms that you're using to the ballots and what forms you're sending, the envelopes, are your oaths correct? And we've always had good reviews. And those things have been posted online so that anybody can go back and look at those. So no, I think we do a really great job. I'd give us an A, except for my poor kid who didn't get his ballot counted that one time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Beaton.
So you're asking me to rate my elections department. Is that correct? Yes. All right. Okay, so it has been a fantastic experience for me in the 8 years that I have been there. And in that time, we have, in the past year, we did, first when I arrived, we made the improvements to the election center. It is a collaborative effort. We have, as Diana mentioned, and all of her experience, much of this time, up to 7 years, she was leading the department. The individuals' reviews that come in, they are hard-hitting, and they have, the Secretary of State, again, has repeatedly found excellent reviews in the 8 years that I've been there. And again, to reiterate, there was a question on the EAC. No, it literally was, I was called and interviewed, and they invited me, and I said, sorry, money's tight, Franklin County, I'm not going to be able to, it's not in my budget. He said, no, we'll fly you back. We'd like you to participate in this. It was Secretary of States from Florida and Delaware and representatives from Alaska. So I really think, and I really want to reiterate, that was largely the work of our outreach coordinator, Rosa Fernandez, and the opportunity that we had, that she has working with, you know, whether it's everybody, I mean, it's equally everybody participating in the naturalization process. It is, I'm, well, if I can say this, I'm proud of how hard they work and how much ownership they take, and the things they've accomplished. So, A+.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to take another question from the audience. Mr. Beaton, you will begin. What do you think are the characteristics of a successful auditor?
Wow, that's great. Well, I think the number one thing that a successful auditor needs is leadership. And they need to understand what the public expects of their auditing process. As I said at the Ed Board, when I went to the newly elected conference, they asked me, oh, there's 4 departments in the auditor's office. Which one do you plan to emphasize? And I said, you know, I plan to audit. And this particular auditor said, well, that's the dirty little secret. Auditors don't really audit. My response was, well, the public thinks we do. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And so I think someone who has the courage to lead humbly, and that is to empower, especially with 4 departments. I mean, to get the most out of your employees, you have to give them a cut of the cake. You have to help them build their careers professionally. And then you go in and fight for the dollars to make sure they're trained. And when they make a mistake, those do happen. You know, you sit them down, you work together, and you equip them. And you coach them up or coach them out. And so I think, you know, that I'm pretty direct. People know where I stand. We created a mission, vision, and values the first month in the office, and so everybody understood. And so again, I think being informed, being assertive, and understanding that I work for the people. And as much as I'd love to get along with everyone in the courthouse, unfortunately, you know, the RCW reads, the duty to audit claims against the county. The county shall audit all claims, demands, and accounts against the county. So that includes all $90 million.
Thank you. Ms. Izagiri.
Thank you. I think a great auditor is an auditor that, well, a great leader. An auditor should be a great leader, but it should be a participatory type leader, one that is involved with the office, one that collaborates with the team, empowers them in that way that they know that you've got their back, that you're there, that you understand what the work is, you understand the workload, you understand when there's issues, so that you can go in and you can go and fight for them and get more budget if you need it, or you know, we need new equipment, or we need another staff person, or we need to shift some things. It's very important to be able to get along with your staff, and that way you can give the best service possible, so that you're all on one team. You've got buy-in from your team. Again, it's just a matter of being present, being accessible, being available, and just working side by side sometimes if you have to. I mean, it's horrible when, you know, you've got a 3-person department and 2 people call in sick. What are you going to do with that other person? You know, and you've got to be able to know what that means for that one person that's there. So I think it's important to be a great a leader in that way.
Thank you. All right, we will be beginning with you again for the next question. I assume there are some budget constraints in the auditor's department, as is often the case with local government. If more money was available, are there any changes or additions you would like to make?
If I had more money. Well, as I mentioned, I would like to make sure that we open the licensing department back up from 8:30 to 5. That got closed about 12 years ago, shortened because of furloughs that we had. We had threats of layoffs, and money was really, really, really tight. And so that was one way for Zona Lenhart to try and keep people working and still provide services. But that's been a long time now, and I think it's time to get that back open, because it's something that I keep hearing that folks will come in, they think that, the courthouse opens at 8:30, they think our doors are there, and they've got to wait till 9. Or if you get off work early, it's closed at 4. So that was one thing. And again, I would really like to be able to add to that education and outreach. I'd like to be able to partner a little bit more, maybe do some mock elections with the high schools. We used to do that a long time ago, where we'd go out to North Franklin, Connell High School, Colotis High School, and just kind of teach the kids a little bit something about voting and just get them prepared. There's a lot more we can do in that regard with education and outreach, and that would be a great place to do it.
Mr. Beaton?
How much money?
It doesn't state.
So, if I had more money, let me first address the concern about the DOL really quickly. It was a number of years ago that the legislation over in Olympia, I opposed it. But it used to be when you came to the Department of Licensing, you saved the $5 that the subagents charged you. The Waves, which is their group, long story short, they pressed for what they called fee equalization, and now they charge you $5 more when you come to us. If you want to support the ferries, go ahead and come to our office. You pay the same as the subagent, but the $5 doesn't go to the subagent, it goes to the ferries. So what we did in response was we added a subagent in West Pasco that's open till 7 and has a drive-through. And what we've seen since that time is the hours are important in our office, but because it costs the same, the incentive to get in there is not the same. And so that's the way we work together with the DOL team to do that. If I had extra money, it's very clear what I would do with it. One of the challenges we have in county government is there's far more demands, as you can see, than we can fund. We lose good people in every department at the county. We can't retain, the sheriff can't retain people, trains them up. And so everybody, I would put the money towards retaining and paying my staff what closer to market. So that's what I would do.
Thank you. All right, it is now time for closing statements. Mr. Beaton, you will be going first.
Thank you. So in closing, I want to leave you with this thought. It is hard to overemphasize the importance of financial knowledge, advanced education, and a proven track record when selecting your county auditor. The auditor is responsible by law for the expenditure oversight of approximately $90 million in Franklin County. The direct demands of the position is to lead 17 staff and a $2.3 million budget across the 4 departments. Over the past 8 years, the outstanding auditor staff has discovered and helped prosecute the largest and longest fraud in state history, received national recognition for elections outreach, and in the past year, we've installed new management software in accounting, elections, licensing, and recording. That's all 4 departments. This has all been possible because we work together, and they are both challenged and supported to reach their professional goals while serving the people of Franklin County. I thank you, and I ask you to please re-elect, and in the third person, re-elect Matt Beaton. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Izagiri, your closing statement.
Thank you very much. Well, first, I'd like to say that I remember 8 years ago when Matt was running against a very experienced auditor, and he said it didn't matter how much experience the auditor had because he had a very trained and knowledgeable staff that could run things for him. So I want to thank the community for all the support I have received in my campaign. Those who wrote in my name on the primary ballot helped me get 3.67% of the votes cast. It doesn't sound like much, but I only needed 1%, and we blew that out of the water. That effort got my name printed on the November ballot, and we are giving voters a choice for auditor. I'm right here. Elected officials are entrusted to carry out all statutory responsibilities of the office efficiently and effectively, not just some. I will set other priorities, such as improving voter turnout. I will be a working auditor supporting my staff in the office on a daily basis to provide the best in customer service and real accountability without politicizing the office and courthouse. I hope you will consider my qualifications. I have worked for you in this office, and I'm asking you for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's thank these two candidates again who are running for Franklin County Auditor. We will now take another break before moving to Franklin County Clerk. Only one of the two candidates were able to be here tonight, and that is Jackie Lopez Giddens. Unfortunately, it is the longstanding policy of the League of Women Voters that when only one candidate is present, that they may make a statement on their own behalf, but we do not have the question and answer portion for this race. The candidate who is not here in this case is Michael Killian, who notified us a few days ago of an unforeseen conflict that results in him not being here. He has chosen to send a representative to read a statement on his behalf. So at this time, we will hear from Ruby Ochoa, who will read a statement on Mr. Killian's behalf. Ms. Ochoa.
Good evening. My name is Ruby Ochoa, and I'm happy to be speaking to you tonight on behalf of Franklin County Clerk Michael Killian, who unfortunately has a conflict that does not allow him to be here this evening. I want you to know that I'm very honored to be a member of Mr. Killian's staff as Chief Deputy Clerk and proudly support him as we serve the citizens of Franklin County. Mr. Killian has a prepared statement that I will read on his behalf. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this forum, the Pasco Police Department for hosting, and all of you that were able to attend either in person or via the video being streamed by the City of Pasco. I've been honored to proudly serve you, the citizens of Franklin County, as your elected clerk for close to 18 years, and began my administrative and financial court work 10 years prior in Franklin County District Court as legal process supervisor under the leadership of the late Judge Pete Felstead. I've been a resident of Franklin County for over 42 years, and our community means a lot to me. I am a dedicated public servant and enjoy being a member of the American Legion, St. Patrick's Parish, and LULAC, to name a few. I am also a member of the Washington State Bar Association's Council on Public Defense, the Washington State Association of County Clerks, Washington State Association of Counties, and the National Association for Court Management. I am a Washington State University certified public official and a chief petty officer proudly serving in the Navy Reserves. The county clerk is an elected position created in the Washington State Constitution. The clerk receives, processes, and preserves all documents permanently for all Superior Court matters, including criminal, civil, family law, probate, guardianship, paternity, adoption, and juvenile matters. The clerk must be independent of the judiciary to maintain the integrity of court records and finances. I am a hands-on clerk that, in addition to my administrative responsibilities, works side by side with my deputy clerks at the customer service counter, answering phones and attending court. My staff provides excellent customer service in all departmental functions, including case management, courtroom assignments, passport processing, jury management, and legal financial collections. My office provides real-time, 24/7 public access to documents, saving the legal community and citizens considerable time and costs. I'm grateful for the overwhelming support I've received, including endorsements from county staff through the Courthouse Union, Franklin County Sheriff Jim Raymond, Connell Police Chief Chris Turner, Franklin County Commissioners Bob Cook and Brad Peck, Benton County Commissioner Jerome Delvin, legal aid of Benton and Franklin counties, the Washington State Farm Bureau, Tri-City Herald, La Voz Spanish newspaper, and over 60 local attorneys, including John Schultz, Eduardo Morfine, Tim Mahoney, and Tony Meacham. Tri-Citians of the Year Alan Brecky and Skip Novakovich, the County Clerks Association, Benton County Clerk Josie Delvin, retired Superior Court Judge Dennis Ewell, and numerous residents of Franklin County. I have the knowledge, experience, and credibility to continue to represent you, ensuring Franklin County's court records, your records, are accurate, open, and accessible to all. If you have questions, would like more information, or would like to talk to Mr. Killian, his contact information is available at the back table. Please vote for experience, vote for a veteran, vote to re-elect Michael Killian. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lopez-Giddens, you can make your statement.
Thank you for all coming tonight. I moved here from the Bronx with my twin sister when I was 16, living in both Pasco and Kennewick off and on throughout the years. I'm married to a firefighter. I'm also a mother of 2 wonderful boys, and I get to enjoy spending time with our 5 grandchildren who all live here locally. As far as my professional life, what most people might not realize is that I actually started here at Franklin County Courthouse in 1994. Could have been 93, but I'm pretty sure it was 94, working in the same office as Mike. Then I moved over to Benton County soon thereafter. I worked in the court system for 16 years, serving 6 of those years as Chief Deputy Clerk. Currently, I am employed as a flight attendant and trainer with a regional airline. I did read in the Tri-City Herald the other day that all I do is hand out barf bags. That's not true. Those are already actually in the seat pouch in front of you, just so that you know. I can assure you there's more to it. It's my responsibility to make sure that the flight attendants are following regulations for the airline as the federal and also the federal aviation regulations. 2 years ago, I purchased a local business called Mail and Stuff in Kennewick. This was an opportunity that came out of nowhere. I basically had to learn how to buy a business and run it in 3 weeks. This business has been such a blessing. I have 4 part-time employees and some of the most amazing customers. Being a candidate in a local election has been an amazing experience. We've doorbelled thousands of homes, and if I've missed you, I'm so sorry. We've received very helpful feedback and incredible encouragement from so many people. I can count on one hand the amount of bad experiences I've had going door to door. But it'll take 2 hands to count the amount of strangers that have asked to pray over me on their doorstep. Well, you're not strangers anymore. Once elected, one of my first priorities will be to my staff, to your staff. When I became Chief Deputy Clerk in Benton County, one of the first things I did was meet with each employee to get to know them and to see what resources they felt they needed to do their job more effectively. I was surprised how much I learned just from asking them what they needed. I will also make sure our financial policies are sound. This will be done through a joint effort with other departments such as the Auditor, the state auditors, and the Treasurer's Office. I am committed to making sure the Odyssey system is being used to the full potential. The lawsuit between my opponent and the judges will come to an end, but the bad feelings behind it won't go away anytime soon. This situation calls for a new voice and a new vision at the table for us to move forward. Our teamwork will extend beyond office walls, beyond departmental walls. We must work together. We owe it to you, the residents. As your independently elected clerk, I will assist you with the court system. I will preserve your records, and I will ensure accountability of your dollars. I promise to be dedicated to you, to be loyal to you, to never forget that I work for you. Thank you. Please vote for me.
Thank you, and thank you both for your statements. I would encourage you to find other opportunities to find out more about the Franklin County Clerk candidates and where they stand on their issues. Thank you so much. Please stay seated. We're going to be going to, last but certainly not least, the race for Franklin County Coroner. Alrighty, we are going to finish up tonight with the candidates running for Franklin County Coroner, Dan Blaisdell and Curtis McGarry, who will give their opening statements. Mr. Blaisdell, you will go first.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the League for supporting this forum tonight so that you can get to know us. My name's Dan Blaisdell. I was the first elected coroner in 1994. The first coroner's office in Washington State that was accredited by the International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners in 2007. I'm married. I have 4 grown children and 7 grandchildren, all living in Franklin County. I am a certified medical legal death investigator, certified by the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigators. I have personally investigated over 2,000 deaths and supervised over 200 autopsies in my 24-year career. I am the past president of the International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners. I'm past president of the Washington Association of County Officials. I'm past president of the Washington Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners. I serve on the board of directors for the past 9 years of the Benton Franklin Fair and Rodeo. I also serve on the board of the Lord's Foundation. For the Washington State Coroners and Medical Examiners, I serve as vice president at the present time, as well as being co-chair of the Education Committee and co-chair of the Legislation Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGarry.
Good evening. I want to thank the League of Women Voters as well as allowing us to come here and talk and visit with you. As I mentioned, I'm Curtis McGarry. I grew up out in Basin City, graduated from Connell High School, went on to receive an associate degree and later an associate degree in mortuary science. In order to get that, you have to have over 5,000 hours of on-the-job training before you're allowed to even take state and national boards, and I've taken those and passed those. I have a family here. They're all in the Tri-Cities. Family, I have 4 kids. They're all married. We live here in the Tri-Cities. In my time, I've had 30-plus years working as a funeral director and embalmer. During that time, I've assisted with law enforcement, with the coroner's office in investigations. I've assisted in autopsies. I would say well over 100 of them. Investigations, and so I have my mortuary science degree. I'm a member of the Kiwanis Club. I served in a scouting department here in the Tri-Cities in the local scouting group. I see a need for some changes in the coroner's office. Complacency has set in, I'm afraid, and I see an office that is outsourcing too many things that should be done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are going to start with Mr. Blaisdell for question number 1. I think this is a good one to start with. Most people's only contact with a coroner comes from watching TV. Could you explain what you think the most important part of the job is from the public's point of view?
Well, the most important part of the job is to determine manner and cause of death. So that takes a thorough investigation by the death investigator that's on the scene. That's working with law enforcement as well as forensic pathologists. Then on top of that, you have to be compassionate towards the family members. This may be the first death that they've ever experienced. And so you have to take their hand and make this process as painless as possible that you can for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGarry.
Can you repeat the question?
Most people's only contact with the coroner comes from watching TV. Could you explain what you think is the most important part of the job from the public's point of view?
So, you know, I get a lot of questions about people asking, so how real is like CSI or those other TV shows you watch? Not too real. You know, as I go out on a call when someone has died, and I ask for your forgiveness now if I talk about some things that are kind of hard to us. But as we go out on a call, many times we are the first ones there. We talk to the families for the very first time as a funeral director. I've talked to them. Sometimes I've been the one to introduce or to tell them that their loved one has passed away. The coroner's office needs to be respectful. We need to show dignity to the families and also to those that have passed on. The investigative side of it needs to be done properly and in conjunction with law enforcement.
Thank you. All right, question 2, we will begin with Mr. McGarry. This one comes from an audience member. What duties are being outsourced to local funeral homes, and do you believe those tasks should be outsourced to them?
It's an excellent question. So many things are being outsourced to the funeral home. I have first knowledge of that because as a funeral director, I do those things. Toxicology draws are being outsourced. The coroner's office currently asks us as funeral directors to do toxicology draws. If you aren't sure what that is, that means we're drawing blood and other samples to have them tested. Many times the coroner's office is not present when those toxicology samples are drawn. They may sit in our facility for days or weeks. Right now I have one sitting in there in our facility since I believe it is March. Where's our chain of command? Our chain of custody? It's broken. Other things that are being outsourced is the coroner's office has asked the funeral homes to perform work for them, transporting the bodies, that they should be doing themselves. When we show up to a scene, we're asked to help do the investigation. We're asked to help perform the removals of those bodies back to the funeral home. When I'm elected, I will get I will work to get our own equipment to do that work ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Blaisdell.
Yes, the law was changed to state that on rotational calls for those funeral homes in your county that wish to participate, an RFP request for performance can be sent out, and those funeral homes that want to provide that service bids on those. In 2016, there was an RFP sent out, and the funeral homes bid on them. The funeral homes came back. There was one particular funeral home that was the winning bidder, and he came to me and said, you know, I don't mind if the Mueller's participates as long as they agree to the same terms as what our bid was. And they did agree to that. And so they did agree in that RFP to do the blood draws, to do the removals, to do the transporting, to take the deceased from either the morgue or the funeral home to the hospital when there are organ procurement donations being done. They also agreed to transport to the hospital for x-rays when that was needed. All of this they agreed to do at no cost. I didn't ask them to do that at no cost. That's what their bid was. I don't know how you can get any cheaper than no cost. It's what the funeral home submitted, and it's good for the citizens of Franklin County.
Thank you. All right, question number 3, we're going to begin with Mr. Blaisdell. What is the purpose of an inquest, and what are some of the circumstances that would warrant one?
The purpose of an inquest is to bring a death investigation to the public and show the investigation to make it transparent. The circumstances that a coroner would hold an inquest is any death that he feels that he needs to bring to the public's attention and show that investigation to be transparent. It's totally his decision, just like an autopsy would be his decision to conduct an autopsy. There is no difference in the law. It is his decision, period.
Thank you. Mr. McGarry.
So the purpose of an inquest, and if I can, I'll read this so I don't misinform anyone. To hear evidence and render a verdict as to the cause of death. So that's the purpose of an inquest, to determine cause and manner of death. That's pretty evident a lot of times. Now, sometimes it's not what the cause and manner of death is. So for us to determine that, we have the cause and we have the manner of death, do we need to go farther? I don't believe we do. When we do, we're stepping out of our jurisdiction and our responsibility as a coroner. So if we go by what the RCW says, if we go by what the meaning and definition of a coroner's inquest is, now, as Mr. Blaisdell stated, the coroner has the right to request an inquest at any time. And I think they should have that right, as long as it's within the bounds of the purpose of the inquest. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question, Mr. McGarry, we will begin with you. How should the coroner balance, or should there be a balance between cooperating with law enforcement and being transparent with the public?
So we need to work together. There needs to be a cohesive working relationship. Most of the time, when law enforcement and the coroner's office works together, there was probably a homicide taking place, or a fatality accident or something of that nature, where investigation on both parties need to be involved. Now, when we have a homicide, we need to have it working together. So during an autopsy, both parties need to be present. We can't have one not knowing when the autopsy is, and the other one not being there when the autopsy begins. Now, I noticed several of us came in late tonight. If we would have locked the doors at 6:30 because you were late, you wouldn't be allowed in tonight. That probably would have upset you. Now, when we have autopsies done on a homicide case, and we exclude detectives from arriving and coming in and gathering evidence that could possibly convict and assist our prosecutor's office and criminal justice partners, that's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Blaisdell.
Would you please repeat the question?
Sure. Well, how should the coroner balance, or should there be a balance between cooperating with law enforcement and being transparent with the public?
Actually, the cooperation with law enforcement should be an equal investigation into any death, meaning that the the coroner's office and law enforcement should investigate that scene together, not one going in first and doing the investigation and then getting called when they're ready for you to come pick up the body. As far as autopsies, there is no RCW that says that law enforcement has control of the autopsy or the coroner facilities where the autopsy takes place. Those autopsies are ordered to be completed by a forensic pathologist. Those evidence, that is gathered at that autopsy then is forwarded on to the prosecutor's office. That evidence that's on that body, because the coroner has jurisdiction of the body, the evidence that is on and in that body then should be turned over to law enforcement to be sent off to the crime lab to be analyzed. That's when law enforcement and the coroner needs to work together.
Thank you. All right, so this is our final question from the audience that we have here tonight, and they are involving the same thing. Mr. Blaisdell, we're going to come to you first since this question is geared towards you, but Mr. McGarry, they said you can either answer it as well or make a comment if you'd like to. To Mr. Blaisdell, did you think it was wise to spend over $100,000 of taxpayers' money for a coroner's inquest in the Zambrano case when the DOJ, State Attorney General, and the Franklin County Prosecutor declined to charge? And if so, please explain why.
Well, it was shortly after the Zambrano shooting that I publicly stated that we were going to have an inquest. If that would have happened as soon as the investigation was completed, that inquest would not have cost any more than about $4,000 or $5,000. It was the opposition of the commissioners who said that they refused to pay for it. It was the opposition of the Superior Court judges who said that we couldn't use a courtroom for the inquest. It was the prosecuting attorney who refused to participate. That is what drove the cost up. And it didn't cost $100,000, it cost $70,000 to do that inquest. And if I had it to do again, I would definitely do it again, because that inquest needed to be brought to the public. It needed to be transparent, and it needed to show how that investigation was done for the healing of the citizens, not only Hispanic, but Caucasian. And I think it was a good thing, and I would think it was well worth the money, and if I had to do it again, I would do it again.
Thank you. Mr. McGarry?
Thank you. Again, I want to read to you the verdict. The reason for an inquest is to render cause of death. Now, this inquest that's been talked about, there was plenty of video. We've all seen it numerous times as to what the cause and manner of death was. I've heard from my opponent that he wanted to be transparent, and also that he wanted to make sure it was justified. Now again, the coroner's purpose is determine cause and manner of death. It wasn't to say if it was justified or not. That's stepping out of the realm and the responsibility of the coroner's office. I believe, as an elected official, we should stay within our certain areas of our responsibility. $70,000. I could have a lot of new equipment in the coroner's office that would make it possible for me to be more self-sufficient. So we weren't having third-party outsourcing. We weren't breaking chain of command. 3 different agencies said it was justified. How many more did we need? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move to our final question tonight. We will begin with Mr. McGarry. What, if any, impact has the opioid crisis had on the coroner's office, and are there any resources to handle it?
It's had a big crisis on the coroner's office. I can't tell you how many times as a funeral director I go out and on a death certificate we'll see opioid overdose. Look at the backlog. Mr. Blaisdell has pointed it out too. Very valid concerns of backlog of getting drug or toxicology reports back because of opioid and marijuana use in the state now. The toxicology labs are booked. They're backlogged. It takes months. What can we do about it? We need to educate. Every one of us have worth and value in our lives. People need to know that they are worth and valued. And drugs are not the way to get through those things. We need to help each other. A community needs to be healed, and a community needs to work together at solving the issues of drugs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Blaisdell.
Yes, the opioid epidemic is out of control, and it affects the coroner's office tenfold. Because of the marijuana tests that the toxicology has been asked to conduct by law enforcement, it's pushed results getting back to the coroner's office by up to 6 months. And that leaves families hanging in limbo, not being able to apply for death benefits, not being able to get closure, always wondering if that death certificate is going to be accidental or natural causes. Something has to be done about the tox lab. The State Coroners Association is working with the Department of Health to put money aside in the Forensic Death Investigation Council to allow coroners to be able to outsource those cases that are not criminal, so that we can get a turnaround back within 7 to 14 days instead of making families wait 6 months to get that back. We are feeling very positive that that legislation is going to go through and that the legislature is going to fix that problem for us.
Thank you. It is now time for closing statements. Mr. Blaisdell, you will go first.
As I said, moving forward, there's several things that I want to do in the coroner's office in the next year. One of them is to lobby the legislators to fix the backlog in the state toxicology labs. I want to lobby the state legislature, teaming with the state health department, to increase funding for basic death from 80 hours to 280 hours. We're wanting to set up a coroner's academy similar to the police academy that's going now. So instead of a new coroner, a new investigator going to a 40-hour class and sitting in lectures for 8 hours a day, they can actually go to classes and get hands-on training. So when they get back to their counties, they're ready to go.
Thank you. Mr. McGarry.
Again, thank you for everyone for coming out. You know, I've had the opportunity, since I announced, I've been knocking on doors, and I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of people. One of the important things I believe as an elected official is to stay here in the county and work, and do the work that you have elected me to do. The other thing is to have respect to those that we work for families. You know, the backlog with the toxicology has caused troubles. Even today, I had a family come into our funeral home and ask us, it's been 6 months since their loved one passed away, and they still have not got a result back. Even though they have tried numerous times, not being successful, to have the coroner's office return and report to them. They're feeling that they're being slighted. I know it's time for a change in the coroner's office. Complacency has set in. I ask for your vote to help me make the change. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's all thank these candidates for participating in tonight's forum, running for Franklin County Coroner. All right, that does complete tonight's forum. Just a few more housekeeping things here. If by chance you are a new voter and you have not yet registered, you can do so at the Franklin County Auditor's office up till October 29th. If you are registered to vote, you should be receiving your ballot within the next week, and it has to be returned by November 6th. If you are mailing your ballot, it has to be put in the mail by November 1st or 2nd. A better idea might be to save the state postage and drop your ballot off in one of the boxes. Thank you so much for attending. Good night. Thank you.